I don't believe there was any one particular moment where I really said, okay, I love Allison. It was just a gradual onset of time, over a length of time, I guess you could say, that I grew to love her. Amazing girl that she is. That's how I became to love her, was over a length of time. She just grew on me and I grew on her, and that's how it went.
There wasn't ever really one moment that I just knew that I loved Gerald. It just came slowly and gradually as we did more and more together and as we spent more time together and grew closer. I first knew that Gerald loved me on a week when I actually got pink eye, and I had to go home from work. I had to stay home from work. Some of my friends weren't very happy with me because they thought they were going to get pink eye. I pretty much felt banished by the world, and Gerald couldn't come around me because pink eye is pretty contagious, so we just had to talk on the phone, and he felt bad for me, and he told me that he was sorry that I had pink eye, and I appreciated that. But I knew that Gerald loved me when he showed up at my door with a little rose bush and handed it to me. And then he sat outside my kitchen and talked to me as I sat inside my kitchen. But the fact that he wanted to come and see me, and that when I looked so gross and had such a nasty bloodshot eye, that he still wanted to see me and sit on my steps and talk to me, that's when I knew Gerald loved me.
The first time that I knew Allison loved me was we were sitting in my apartment and we were talking, and all of a sudden she said, I have a random question and I don't know if it's going to scare you, but I'm going to tell you. So she started to tell me. She's like, I love you. And about that time, Alan came in and it broke the awkward silence, or it made it even worse of an awkward time, because Emma walked in right at the perfect moment. But that gave me time to think, because she popped the question on me like that, and I was like, whoa, that was very random. So it gave me time to think during the time that Emma came home, because we started talking to him, and it gave me a time to, analyze my thoughts. So it turned out perfect.
I first told Gerald that I loved him when we were at his apartment watching a movie. We were sitting there and I really wanted to tell him. I was like, I've got to tell him, I've got to tell him. Half of me was like, no, he has to say it first. The other half of me was like, no, it's okay, you can say it first, because Gerald's really slow. So I was debating and Gerald said, so I can tell that there's something on your mind. What's on your mind? And I was like, nothing's on my mind. He was like, no, there is something on your mind. And I was like, it's not important really, it's not. There's something that I want to tell you, but it's not important, I can tell you later. And then he was like, well, what is it? You can tell me, it's fine. I said, well, it's nothing bad. Well, at least I don't think it's anything bad. And finally, he pried it out of me. I said, I love you. And so yes, I did say it first. Right after I said that, not 2 seconds later, his brother Ammon walked in the door, and Gerald had not returned the I love you, and it was killing me. I just wanted to leave. I was like, wow, this is really awkward, and I don't know if he's going to return it. And Ammon wanted to tell us all about school and everything going on. So I was like, oh my gosh, I am so embarrassed, I just want to leave. Well, finally Ammon left the room, and Gerald looked at me and said, I love you too. And that meant a lot to me, especially since I was panicking. And I'll always remember that moment. I recently moved into a new apartment, and I came home from work, unlocked the door, walked in, and there was a random man sitting on the beanbag in my apartment. And I was kind of stunned at first, and it kind of made me jump a little bit on the inside, but being the person that I am, and the fact that he wasn't jumping up to attack me calmed me down a little bit, and I said, hello, random man in the love sack. And Gerald introduced himself and told me that my roommate was actually in a room with a couple of friends with the door shut, and that he wasn't there by himself, that he was supposed to be there. And so I warmed up to him a little bit. I wasn't quite as afraid. And after that, my roommate came out of her room with her friends, and we talked for a while, and then I went to bed so that I could go to work the next morning. My first date with Gerald. Well, I was on my way home from work, and my roommate called me and said, "Hey, I gave your number to Gerald, and he's probably going to be calling you." And I thought, what? Gerald? I knew who Gerald was, and I talked to him a couple times, but I didn't know him very well. And he did call me, and he asked me to go rock climbing with him on a Friday. And I was pretty excited because Gerald was pretty cute. So I got ready at work, and we went rock climbing, and I had a really good time. We went with his roommate and his roommate's girlfriend. And it was a lot of fun. I had never been rock climbing before. Luckily, I was using the auto belayer, and Gerald turned around for a second, and that's when I decided to come back down the rock. I was glad he was turned around because I actually fell all the way down to where I was on my back. And he didn't really see that, but then he turned around and I was flat on the floor, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And he had to help me up because I couldn't get up on my own and help me out of the auto belayer. It was pretty embarrassing, but I had a really good time, and I was a little bit interested in Gerald after the date, but we just had to wait and see.
First date was rock climbing. I called her up, and it was me and my roommate at the time and his girlfriend. So we went rock climbing. It was an awesome date. It was fun. It was my first time rock climbing. I've been rappelling several times, and so we really enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun date. I just found out how sporty Allison was and how fun she could be. She was, funny, laughing, comical. Enjoyed my jokes. I sometimes have horrible jokes. He laughed at them. So that was very nice to have a person that was very compatible and cliquey.
My thoughts after my first date with Gerald were, man, this guy's really nice, and he's really cute, and I had a really good time. So I want to do something else with him. So I invited him to go flying with my cousin and I, and it was a really, really fun time. I got to know him a little bit better, and I realized that he was a great guy. But it didn't really lead to dating at all.
Well, after our first date, we ended up not dating. We went flying after our first date. She took us flying. Her cousin took us flying in the plane. That was a couple weeks after that. And then I started dating another girl. At the time when I went rock climbing, I really wasn't interested in her all that much. It was just a random date. And so after that, I started dating another girl, and then it took a long time thereafter, after I broke up with that girl, to really realize what I was missing.
Gerald and I didn't start dating after our first couple dates. Why? Because Gerald asked me out because another girl wouldn't go with him. And he started dating that girl soon thereafter, so I was disappointed. Actually, I was furious. So I decided that I wasn't really going to talk to Gerald anymore. But luckily I got over that and realized that I was being a little bit mean, and decided to start inviting him to things that I was planning.
I first became interested in Allison after a lot of game nights. We ended up spending a lot of time over here playing games, going to racquetball, and doing different ward activities, single activities. So that's when I first became interested in Allison, was just because she was a fun girl. She threw game nights, she threw parties all the time, and we had a lot of fun together. So that's what became very good friends before we started dating.
Something that Gerald doesn't mention very often is what happened before we were dating. Before we were dating, Gerald and I used to play racquetball a whole lot. I actually beat Gerald several times playing racquetball, and we used to bet Gatorades. Whoever would lose would have to buy the other person a Gatorade. I did have to buy Gatorades a couple times, but I usually won the bets that I made. That actually helped build our relationship a whole lot. Also, I accidentally gave Gerald a black eye. I didn't mean to, but I did. And I was just returning a serve and he turned around at the right time. He ran into that ball. He totally ran into that ball. The worst thing about it was that a couple days later, I had to meet his parents with him having a black eye that I gave him. That looked great.
Oh, one interesting thing that happened when we were doing the whole racquetball and game nights and all that stuff. It was very interesting. It was every Tuesday night we started playing racquetball, and we'd invite it was about 6 to 8 people, somewhere around there. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And it was usually about the same few all the time. So anyway, it was me, Ammon, and Allison playing, and then one of our colleagues showed up from work. Anyway, so it was me and a colleague that were playing against Ammon and Allison. So we ended up starting playing, and lo and behold, Allison's really competitive, and she just killed me. Well, not really killed me, but she basically beat me up bad. We were playing racquetball, and all of a sudden I turned around and boom, she hit me with a racquetball right in the eye. Yeah, I had a black eye for quite some time, and I used it to my advantage and told everybody that she beat me up, but they didn't believe me, and it was just a good laugh. So that was probably one of my memorable moments with Allison. She gave me a black eye. The first time I held Allison's hand came home from a game night, and we were sitting out on the front steps because it was after curfew hours, around 12 o'clock or a little later, 12:30. And we were sitting there and we were just talking for a while. Then Allison gave me an opportunity, she says, to hold my hand. She put her hand out on her knee and I took
When
the
Gerald and I
bait.
came back from a game night at our friend Jeff's house, we decided that we wanted to sit outside on the steps and talk. But it was January and it was cold. Yes, it's Mesa, but it was still cold. So, and it was past curfew, so there was no way we could sit in the house. So we were sitting on the steps. I was freezing. I was absolutely freezing. So I was scrunched up and trying to stay warm, and a thought crossed my mind, you're not keeping yourself open so that Gerald can hold your hand. And so rather than having my arms crossed, I decided to bear the cold and put my hand over on my knee, kind of just gently resting there to where it would be easy for him to take it. And I only had to leave it there for a couple seconds. He took it pretty quick, and I was really excited and really happy about it. And I couldn't believe that it was happening because Gerald and I had been doing stuff together for so long, and there was absolutely no relationship at that point, but it was kind of getting there, so I was really excited that something finally happened.
Now the first time that I kissed Allison it was the next night right after I held hands with Allison. I was getting ready to go home and we were standing at the door. I was giving her a hug and I didn't really know it this at the time, but she dodged my kiss. The first time she put her head on my shoulder and I didn't realize it. Didn't dawn on me. But a minute later she ended up kissing me and she told me later that she dodged my kiss, which I guess she wasn't ready at the time. I was a little too fast for her after the next night holding her hand. So I did move fast, so that's one time I did move fast. You can't say that I moved really slow on that one.
The first time that Gerald and I kissed was great. However, it was actually the night after he held my hand. He was saying goodnight to me and he gave me a hug and he was looking down at me and he totally had kissy eyes, and I knew he had kissy eyes. I knew he wanted to kiss me. And that kind of freaked me out. So I just hugged him tighter and put my head against his shoulder really quick because I didn't know if I wanted to kiss him that soon. So when I had my head against his shoulder, I was trying to decide, I'm like, do I let him kiss me? Do I let him kiss me? Oh my gosh, he's gonna try to kiss me again. And he asked me a question, and I don't even remember what the question was, but I looked up at him, and he went in for a kiss, so I just let him because I decided, he's cute, I like him. So I let him kiss me, and then after he kissed me, I went home. Oh, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't even sleep for like a couple hours. It was amazing.
It took me a long time to realize that Allison was the one that I was wanting to marry and spend the rest of my life with. She was very, very patient with me. At times it didn't seem like she was very patient, but she was patient. She did learn a lot of patience during that process, but she was very patient with me. It took me a long time to decide. Like I said, we went on our first date a year ago, over a year ago, and she won me over. She's an amazing girl, and it took me a long time to realize that I love her and that I want to spend the rest of my life with her. So then I finally got the nerve up to ask her and planned it out, and she really didn't know that was coming, and it turned out very well.
So I knew Gerald was making a decision about whether he wanted to marry me over the weekend, and he came back on Sunday to go to church, and he came to pick me up for church, and I thought, well, he'll probably tell me what his decision is before church. But when he came to pick me up, he was just like, hey, you ready to go? And I was like, yeah. And he was giving me the funniest smile. It was a different smile than I've ever seen. And on our way to church, I said, what are you smiling at? And he said, nothing, I can't just smile at you. And I said, well, you can smile at me, but that's a different smile. I don't recognize that smile, what is it? And he was just like, it's nothing, I'm just smiling, I'm just happy, can I be happy? And so I was like, whatever, fine. So we got to church, and Gerald held my hand and had his arm around me, so I thought, oh, well, the answer must not be no. So we went through church, so 3 hours of church, and then there was mingles afterwards, so that was like another half an hour. Then we went to my apartment so that I could change back into normal clothes, and then we went over to his apartment to cook dinner. And I'm like, come on, it's been like 5 hours by this time, or maybe 4.5, but 5 hours sounds better. But it was a long time. And so we started cooking dinner, and I walked into the kitchen to help him cook dinner, and Gerald wrapped his arms around me and pulled me close and looked down at me and said, so this weekend I decided that I can't live without you. Is that okay? And I hugged him tighter and I said, yes, that's okay. And I was so happy, and from that point we started planning the wedding.
I love how Allison is very fun to be around. She's a jokester. She usually plays along pretty well in the jokes, has some pretty good comebacks. I usually end up sticking my foot in my mouth because she usually comes up with better comebacks than I do, and I'm dumbfounded when she comes up with better comebacks than I do. But that's what I love her about. She's very fun. She's very comical to be around, and she's an amazing girl.
A few little things that Gerald does that I like are, number one, when Gerald shouldn't say something but he's thinking it, he kind of bites his lip like this. And I know he's about to say something, and that's when he gets himself in trouble. I also like that when I look over at him, he winks at me quite often. I really like that. Another thing that I like about Gerald is that he's always been very willing to hold my hand or put his arm around me in public. I really do like that. Yeah. So I was just gonna.
So now we just need to do.
Did you just pick your nose on camera?
I did. I didn't really. I just kind of like.
That's so going in the bloopers.
I just. It's like this. I just. It's my inside of my nostril.
That's so going on the bloopers.
Whatever.
Okay.
Darn it.
What happened
I can
after?
pick it on. You want me to pick it on camera? I can stick my finger up there and pick it. But it's not going in the wedding video. Whatever
It's
you
going
say.
in the wedding video. Bloopers.
No, it's not. We're not doing
That was a nice blooper. Good job, good job. You're rolling, by the way. Pick your nose.
Okay.
Well, pick it. Is it okay?
No. Leave me alone.